There we go. All right, we are live. So, all right, we got one person watching. So, tonight we're just going to be working on a cross-peen hammer. I'm kind of basing it off of a Czech style, like Czech Republic, Czech style cross-peen hammer. And I'm also forging the top part of a flatter tonight, so then we can forge the rest of it into. I'm going to weld a flat piece of steel onto the bottoms to make a flatter. So. Got our new rubber mallet here. Did I say rubber mallet? I meant wooden mallet. So this is the new. I made this mallet today, actually, wooden mallet. We'll see how long it lasts out here, getting beaten up. Put some oil, some linseed oil, or some boiled linseed oil on this mallet just to help it. It's the actual mallet head is made out of some. Well, it's actually helpful for Christmas trees, some white fir, and if it dries out too quick, it's gonna crack. So I'm just trying to get some linseed oil on there just to kind of help it dry more slowly. Or we're going to see if adding oil to it will make it dry at a slower pace so we aren't cracking it. There we go. I look like someone using a rounding hammer. We also got the new hammers to try out with the nice mirror polish that we're going to get rid of tonight. Try out this new German style cross peen with that nice long peen there. Have some fun. I got the forge all chalked up because it's a little cold right now, and I'm trying to get it warmed up enough to actually start forging. Might actually throw in a railroad spike to try a little project I saw online today. There we go. Yeah. It's working really well. Hey. Ah! Dang it. Look at that. First forging and already frickin' burned the handle. Ah. Dang it. That bums me out. I can't believe that. Oh well. I'm going to try this French one out next. That's a match. Oh, I'm gonna. Nobody watching still. Well, people decide to watch this after the fact. There's the fortune of this cross-peen hammer currently. Oh, don't burn. Oh, man. The scale is just on fire tonight. Literally. Oh, man. Burns. It's getting good tonight. Oh. Trying to find my brush. There it is.
Still nobody watching.
Still got, oh.
Um, right now, what I'm working on forging is I'm working on forging a smaller German style cross peen with, really nice curved peen. Almost have that finished shape wise, and then I'm gonna start punching it. And I have a brand new hammer punch that I made a couple days ago that we're gonna use to punch that out. And then I'm also working on a piece of I want to say it's about 1.5 inch round mild steel that I'm forging down, so we'll punch it and turn it into a flatter, and then I'll weld on the actual plate for the flatter, just because we haven't gotten to the point where we can just forge one out. We don't have a large enough hardy hole for that either, and we don't have a swage block, so that's what we're doing. And I'm gonna go check if the steel's hot. That flew pretty good. Got 2 people watching now. Sweet. It's right there. Absolutely. Make some nice hammers. So here's the one that I'm currently working on. As you can see, the shape is there now. There we go. There's the shape there. A lot of grinding, a lot of grinding on there still. But now we're basically to the point where I say patience, but like I was saying, we're almost to the point now where we're ready to start punching the eye hole. But patience in blacksmithing is, you can have really low patience if you can swing a really big hammer for a long time quickly. Oh. Okay. That sucks. That sucks. Oh well. Thank you, Michael. And Max's Jixus, I think is how you pronounce your name. Yeah, I mean, right there, this hammer is just about 4 pounds. Um, this is the hammer I use when I really want to move material, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. And then when I'm just, you know, needing to move material, but just kind of going at my own pace, I have my 2.5 pound, actually 3 pound rounding hammer, and this is honestly what I prefer most of the time when I'm just doing stuff like, say, like decorative hooks or making like a leaf keychain, and then you use different hammers to add like the grooves. Like I'll use this little cross peen I forged, kind of after the Swedish style, but like I'll use that for adding the veins into the leaf. Or oh, drop my phone. But like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't take too much to move material, and it takes more effort to get my phone to stop falling over. I mean, honestly, it will not. Sorry if I'm making you guys dizzy. You can see the anvil there. Okay, it's going to stay there. I really need to get a tripod. That's probably what I should ask for Christmas. But, I mean, yeah, when I'm really moving material, I use, yeah, a 3 pound, 4 pound. Thank you, Gabriel Yurga, for joining in. We're just working on forging a flatter, the head of the flatter, and a small German style cross peen hammer. This is 4 pound. I'm working on about 2 pound cross. So that's what's going on. Well, right there, I think a hot piece of metal or some like spark flew out, landed on the trash bag there, and lit it on fire. I don't know how that happened, but I was like, what's going on? But got that put out. Let's move some metal. looks like we are all right. We have God Loves Warriors. Okay, you want me to move the camera closer? Doing that right now. There you go. Is that a little better, everyone? All right. So what we're doing right now, Gary Brown, thank you so much for joining in. So what we're doing is I'm working on forging a flatter. I'm going to do the style where you weld the plate onto the bottom for the actual flattening plate or the flatter part. But I'm working on making the actual like kind of hammer part that you strike on. Right now I'm forging it out of some mild steel just so that the mild steel is more persuasive and it isn't going to be chipping as we're hitting it, but it's going to basically mushroom out and we'll just grind it. And I'm also working on forging a 1.5 pound to 2 pound German style or Germanish style cross peen hammer with a nice big peen on there, nice round peen. So that's what we're working on tonight. And right now I'm going to start actually punching the cross peen. I got my brand new punch that I forged just a couple days ago. And I just got a polishing wheel so I can polish it all nice and up so it doesn't stick as badly. I'm going to dip it in some oil to keep it a little cool and make it so that it pops out of the hole that we're creating a little easier. Going to be taking our time on this hole. And I'm going to be using this Dutch style sledgehammer, 3.3 pound or 1500 grain. There we go. Now we're going to rake her. Get some of that fork scale off. And we're going to really take our time. Try to get the best placement for this eye. We're taking this nice and slow. I'll adjust the camera in just a second. Grab the pickup tongs here, and I'll show you what we got. So As you can see, there's the starting pull of the hammer. All right, so the is made out of actual A2 tool steel. From this tool supply down out of California. Um, if my camera will stay, we might go to. Do you guys like that position of the camera? Let me know if you do. Because then you can kind of see what's going on. But so again, back onto the topic that I was last talking about. Yeah, this punch is made out of A2 tool steel, which is an air hardening tool steel. But I quench it in oil to get it a little harder, and I temper it pretty heavy to get it quite soft because I do not want it breaking because it is going to be under a lot of stress working under a hammer. And especially when my dad comes out and he wants to work with a sledge, it's going to get a lot of abuse. So A2 is it's pretty tough. So that's why I chose the A2 for making the punch out of. As you can see, the hammer will dent the back of it if I miss strike. So I'm okay with that, but it does not displace. And, the tip got about a pale red hot, and it did not mushroom or lose its edge retention at all after that. So works good. And this punch is actually probably my best heat treat I've ever done. Um, I've had problems always with cracking because I tend to try to harden stuff too much, and this didn't have any cracks. The file wouldn't touch it, and I got a good tempering process done on it. People like to do oven tempering, but I just like colors and a blowtorch. All right, I'm gonna grab the flatter. And we're gonna wail on that for a little. What people watching? So yeah, when I'm brushing off this on the forge scale, which since you're heating metal, it likes to react with oxygen a lot more than usual because you're exciting all the molecules of steel and all the different I mean you're getting all the molecules of all the different materials and chemicals that make up steel, and they want to react with oxygen a lot more quickly, and so then you basically you make forge scale, which is, as it sounds, it's kind of a scaly material. I mean, a lot of it comes off, but on an average forging, you only lose at most 5% of your workpiece to scale when you're working a small piece. Um, they're not necessarily impurities. If I was working on a piece of bloomery steel, for say, which is piece of bloomery steel, is the steel that you basically, or not, wouldn't be technically steel, it'd be wrought iron. And when I'm, if I were to be beating on that, yes, that'd be impurities coming out. But since this is refined steel, it does not have any impurities. So this is not necessarily the impurities coming out. It's just the steel reacting with oxygen to then basically form iron oxide is what this is primarily. And then if you have a steel that has nickel and chromium, those will create chromium oxide and nickel oxide. You, on an average foraging, you only lose 2 to 5%, which is really not much. Not even that much usually. It doesn't shrink that much. At most, on a very long foraging, it'll be like a quarter of an inch different. I mean, not a quarter of an inch, like a 16th of an inch difference. So it's not much. And steel's hot, so I'm gonna continue working on my hammerhead. Let's see what we have. So 2,000 degrees is about forge welding temperature, so this forge can get up to there about, but usually we run it only around 1,800 degrees or 16 to 1,800 degrees. Actually, not even that hot. We only run it around 13 to 1,500 degrees usually. Um, that's just because we don't need it at forge welding temperature where the outside layer of the metal is liquid enough to then be able to connect two pieces together. Honestly, so how I got into forging is number one, my dad wanted to do it, and he got his first experience at a Boy Scout camp called Philmont Scout Ranch, and then I went to a camp up in California that was called Camp Fleshman, and they had blacksmithing program up there. I took it and got my metalworking merit badge there through blacksmithing, and we both wanted to do it, so we finally went out and we just started building, and we have a blacksmith shop now. When I first started blacksmithing, I used a paint can with refractory cement in there, and I made a forge burner out of. Um, I made a forge burner out of a just a regular propane regulator that I found off of some propane heater, and stuck it in a piece of pipe and crimped the end enough so the jet of propane would come out and make it. That heater, that forge barely got up to 1,200 degrees, but it worked. And first anvil that I started working on was pieces of scrap metal I found, welded them together. I think it was probably a 20-pound anvil. Now we're working on a 127-pound anvil we found at on a drag on a ranch down in Gardnerville, and we're like, well, and we asked them if we could take it, and we have it. So that is where we got our start in blacksmithing. And it doesn't cost too much. I mean, but the first tongs I made was just some scrap metal rebar I found lying around, and fashioned them. Most of my skill that I've learned is actually off of YouTube University. I'm just joking with you. It's just YouTube, and there's so much material and so much there's so much educational material out on the YouTube that is virtually endless for just blacksmithing and bladesmithing. So steel's hot. Let's forge it. Thank you, Gary. I really appreciate you coming in. This really is an awesome trade. Yeah. I mean, So God loves warrior. Um, so the steel that I'm forging, the hammer that I've been punching, um, right now is actually axle that I got off of a big baler. See, during the summer, I work down on a ranch for working as, you know, on the baling crew when they need me, and also as the mechanic for that ranch down there. And when someone turns too tight with the PTO ran baler, they break a shaft. And I want to say this is inch and 3/4 um drive shaft and or PTO drive shaft, and the stuff is just fabulous for hammer making. It's really ductile, it's really tough, but it's hard enough. For making a knife, there are endless materials, but you could make it out of A2. You can make it out of O1 tool steel, which is an oil hardening tool steel. You can make it out of like a 1095 or a 1085, which are different. They're higher end tool steels. You can kingpin out of a semi. I'm not sure about that. Quick way to test if a material is good for making, say, like a blade out of, or making a tool out of, is you take a grinder of some sort, some way that you can get sparks off of that piece of steel, and you look at the sparks. You can look up a video on it. There's many videos out there saying like how to test carbon content of a piece of steel by grinding or testing, yeah. And basically you could look at the sparks. If the sparks come off quite dull and just kind of look like one piece as they're coming off, it's not that good of steel. If the sparks look really sparkly, like they start looking like a fireworks show as you are pulling them off, the more sparkly they get. Like if you grab a piece of cast iron, it's some of the highest carbon content, like true cast iron, like a cast iron skillet. Those are going to be really high in carbon, and that is going to make a freaking fireworks show as you're grinding it. This stuff is going to make pretty good sparks, and the mild steel is not going to make as good of sparks. But as you will watch the spark, it'll split off, and it'll kind of split itself off and send even more little tails off of that original spark, and that's how you know if it's good steel for making tools or a knife out of. Leaf spring, I know, is a really good material for making knives out of. I've made cleavers. I've made like competition choppers. So yeah, railroad track is right. It's a little bit above. It's actually not the hardest, but it does make some pretty nice sparks. But honestly, if you can find leaf spring is my go-to for scrap metal knife making. And you can find it at junkyards or picking poles, or I mean, you can just find them on the side of the road sometimes even. Or coil spring also makes okay if you want to mess around with like a small knife. But lead spring honestly works really well, and it's nice and flat, so you can just flatten it out, and then you can cut it with an angle grinder to shape, and even cut bevels in it with like an angle grinder or whatever you have. And um, yeah, that's what works great. And then you can heat treat it and do all that. Steel's hot. I'm going to forge a little bit.
That's blowing all that scale nicely off. So here's my stick back at fire. Let's see what else we got here in the comments. Yeah, road track makes great material for anvils. And if you want honestly, if you want a true good anvil, um, there's this. Oh, I dropped my punch and all the oil's collected all the dirt now. But there's this anvil. So any tips for basic heat treating? Um, yeah, the bluing of the steel is definitely that's what I do for heat treating. Honestly, like right here, there's the color spectrum have there up front. This way you have a yellow, start getting into brown, or golden brown, then to brown, then to kind of a purplish, and then you get to blue, and the light blue. Um, that is honestly, this is how I heat treat all my tools, is watching the colors. Also, you can use, like, if you have a baking oven or no, an oven. You can use an oven. I know people like will go and buy a cheap toaster oven and use that for heat treating. You just have to research. The big thing is you just have to research what type of steel you have. So if you're using scrap, that's why I always use the color method. It's because I'm always heat treating scrap. I don't know the full characteristics of that steel. So usually I'll cut a little chunk off and test it, cut like a couple chunks off, test one in water, test one in oil, test one in just regular air, and test different heat treating processes, like watching the colors, what color I should get to. And usually with that I can guesstimate what type of, or not what type, but how I'm going to work the steel, or how I'm going to heat treat it to use on a tool or something. But if you buy like store bought steel, like this is store bought, but I just did the colors because that's what works. But if you buy
store-bought steel that you know exactly what steel it is. You can do all the research and you can find everything about that steel and how to heat treat it and the different methods of heat treating it. So really, basic tips is just watching the colors, of course. More advanced tips is honestly you have to find out what you're using to be able to know how to properly heat treat it past just watching the colors. Steel's hot. Let's make some sparks fly or some scale fly. Oh, that hurt. All right, comments again. Absolutely. I I love blacksmithing, and it excites me to see more people getting into the. It's not really the trade, but the fun of it all. And I mean, I think the best advice that I have heard and that I'm going to pass on is you just you got to remember that blacksmithing or smiting the steel or smiting whatever material you're going to be smiting is the building blocks of all society. It all started where some caveman is sitting there at a big rock and he has another rock and you have some material, say like copper in the beginning, that he's then banging into shape. And then he uses that copper to make a tool, say a hammer. And then he's able to better do it. And just everything has basically started from nothing, just the most basic.
of tools. If you have a hammer and you have a big enough material that you can strike on that will not displace but will channel that energy into the material you are forging, you can do anything. You can make all your own tools that you need. You can make all. I mean, it's just. Yeah. All I'm just trying to say is the opportunity and the ideas are endless. And when you have a hammer and you have something to use as an anvil, you can do anything. You can make any tool you want. It all is basically based upon your skill and what you're willing to do. And also, if you have more money than time, then go out and buy all your tools. Go and buy a bunch of tongs. Go buy a bunch of hammers. Go buy a nice, or go buy all the tools. Go buy all kinds of different drifts and different punches. But if you have more time than money, then you can make all this stuff. It isn't super hard, and it doesn't have to be as fancy as this. Like, I know the punch that we've been using a lot before this is just a simple round punch. Let me go grab it. There, simple enough to forge. But you don't even need a handle through it. You can just make it a pure punch, and then you can hold with some tongs, and you can just hold that over your hole, and then start punching your material, and then just goes on and on and on. Question: how long have I been forging? I would say about 2.5 years now. And like that, I already have a chunk of steel pulled out of that hole. That's pretty exciting. It's not all the way through yet, but we have a little plug. I don't know where that plug came from. Either I don't know where my tongs went, but as you can see, this is the negative of our uh, punch. So, oh, nope, that's just my broken punch. Lovely. I did. Alright, God loves warrior. Thank you for stopping in and watching. I did get the negative out of the piece of steel. My punch actually broke off in the piece of steel, so
That's just lovely. That's a little disappointing. Four people watching. It's all right. Well, I broke my punch. Well, I broke my punch, the tip of my punch off, and my piece of steel. Luckily, it's already being punched, so I can get it out. The reason that happened is because I was being too greedy. I was taking too many blows with a hammer, leaving my punch too long in there. So it's getting too hot, and I should have cooled it off in oil instead of quenching it in water to get it cooled off real quick. So it's what you get when you get greedy.
crispy. It's what happens. It actually helps me out a little bit because the tip of my punch, as this is not the actual tip, this is just the negative of the plug that I knocked out before I broke my tip off. Um, this is basically essentially the same size as my the tip of my punch was, so you can see that it's really small. It's probably like 6 millimeters um in length, and so now this is probably like 9-10 millimeters um length side to side, so makes it a little bit bigger hole, a little easier to send a drift through. We're ready to make the eye shape. We're at about an hour 30 minutes. And it is just about 8 o'clock. We're probably going to end this up right at 8 o'clock. About once I get my big hammer punched out, then I'm going to end this stream and end my fortune tonight because I'm getting tired. But let's finish the punching. I'm going to wipe down my anvil so I'm not lighting it on fire as I was earlier. It's a little dirty. But it sure won't rust, I'll tell you that much. My punch went in the dirt again. Look at that nice clean face. Alright. My punch is gonna overheat. Come on, come out. Ah. Well, that is just great. We have snapped it off again. That is going to end our stream there because I'm going to have to fix the punch because I snapped it off again. It got too hot and I cooled it off in oil, which screwed it up. It was too cooled it down too quick, which then caused. The grain structure looks amazing. I don't know why it keeps snapping off, as you could see, it's all screwed up. Well, there we go. If I can show you guys what we have right here. That's the flatter, the hotter one. There's the cross peen. They're getting there. We'll get there eventually. Thank you so much for everyone that was
watching the live stream. Really appreciate it. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching it and that you maybe learned a little bit. If not, I just enjoy you guys watching. Um, See y'all in the next video. Hopefully, we'll have a new punch made. We're probably gonna change the title of this live stream to Forging a Crosspeen Hammer Part 1, and Part 2 will come back and finish this. Thanks for watching. See y'all next time.